The Catholic Church, a beacon of faith and tradition spanning millennia, has a new leader, Pope Leo XIV. His election sends ripples of anticipation across the globe, not just within the faithful, but also among world leaders, economists, and everyday citizens. Pope Leo XIV's vision, deeply rooted in the principles of social justice and environmental stewardship, is poised to challenge the status quo and reframe the global economic discourse. The challenges facing Pope Leo XIV are daunting. Global inequality continues to widen, with the gap between the rich and the poor reaching unprecedented levels. Pope Leo XIV's leadership, grounded in the principles of compassion, solidarity, and the common good, offers a beacon of hope in these uncertain times. The Papacy, an institution steeped in history and tradition, wields considerable moral authority on the world stage. Pope Leo XIV inherits this legacy, stepping into a role that carries immense weight and influence, particularly in matters of social justice and human development. His unwavering commitment to justice, peace, and the care for creation has the potential to inspire a new generation to embrace a more humane and sustainable path forward. Pope Leo XIV assumes his role in a world increasingly interconnected by globalization. His voice, amplified by the global reach of the Catholic Church, has the potential to reshape the discourse on globalization, advocating for a more just and equitable distribution of its benefits. His leadership has the potential to inspire a new era of global cooperation, one characterized by a renewed commitment to justice, peace, and the well-being of all people and the planet we share. Pope Leo XIV's first public addresses sent shockwaves through the global financial centers. His words, imbued with a profound sense of compassion and a deep concern for the plight of the marginalized, signaled a marked departure from the often clinical language of economic discourse. He challenged the world to move beyond a narrow focus on profit maximization and to embrace a broader understanding of prosperity, one that encompassed not just material wealth, but also social well-being, environmental sustainability, and spiritual fulfillment. Pope Leo XIV's commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals signaled a new era of engagement for the Catholic Church in global development efforts. He called upon the Church's vast global network, its parishes, schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations, to make the SDGs a central focus of their work. His unwavering commitment to the SDGs positioned the Church as a leading voice in global development, a moral authority advocating for the poor, the marginalized, and the planet. Pope Leo XIV's pronouncements on climate change reverberated throughout the halls of power and the corridors of finance. He framed climate change not merely as an environmental issue, but as a fundamental moral crisis, a profound failure of humanity to fulfill its sacred duty to care for God's creation. His unwavering commitment to environmental stewardship positioned the Catholic Church as a leading voice in the fight against climate change, a moral compass guiding humanity towards a more sustainable future. Pope Leo XIV's papacy ushered in a renewed emphasis on the Church's preferential option for the poor, a cornerstone of Catholic social teaching that calls for prioritizing the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized members of society. He spoke out against the widening gap between the rich and poor, denouncing systems and structures that perpetuated poverty and injustice. His pronouncements on poverty and inequality sparked a wave of activism within the Church. Pope Leo XIV's critique of the global financial system sent shockwaves through the world's financial capitals. He called for a fundamental rethinking of the global financial architecture, urging a shift away from speculation and towards productive investment. His call for a more just and ethical financial system resonated with those who believed that the global economy should serve the needs of all people, not just the privileged few. To understand Pope Leo XIV's potential economic influence, we must first journey back in time. The papacy has been a potent force shaping the political, social, and economic landscape of the world. From the fall of the Roman Empire to modern nation-states, popes have left an indelible mark. Imagine the early Middle Ages, a time when Europe lay fragmented. The Catholic Church emerged as a unifying force providing spiritual guidance and social order. The Pope commanded unparalleled moral authority, shaping the destinies of kings and kingdoms. His influence extended to every aspect of life, including the burgeoning economies of medieval Europe. The Pope's blessing could elevate a ruler, legitimizing his reign and solidifying his power. Conversely, papal disapproval could spell disaster, leading to excommunication. This spiritual authority translated into tangible economic influence. Papal pronouncements could determine trade routes and influence the flow of capital. Consider the impact of the papal states, territories under the direct control of the Pope. These lands served as a testing ground for papal economic policies. The economic decisions made within the papal states influenced the practices of other rulers. The papacy was an active participant, shaping the flow of wealth and influencing financial instruments. It is against this backdrop that we can comprehend the potential economic impact of Pope Leo XIV. The investiture controversy exemplifies the papacy's economic and political influence during the Middle Ages. This conflict pitted Pope Gregory VII against Emperor Henry IV over appointing bishops, a matter with profound economic consequences. Bishops controlled vast lands and wielded significant economic power. The right to appoint them was a contest for control over resources and wealth. Henry IV insisted on his right to invest bishops, symbolized by a ring and staff. Pope Gregory VII saw this as simony and a threat to the Church's independence. He argued that only the Pope had the authority to appoint bishops. The controversy escalated into a power struggle, with excommunications and rebellions. Henry IV, excommunicated, humbled himself before Pope Gregory VII at Canossa in 1077. This act of penance secured Henry's temporary reconciliation with the Church. The investiture controversy ended with the Concordat of Worms in 1122. This agreement affirmed the Pope's authority in spiritual matters, including episcopal appointments. The controversy highlighted the papacy's willingness to engage in political and economic battles. It demonstrated the economic implications of seemingly religious disputes. The investiture controversy serves as a reminder of the intertwined nature of religious and secular power in medieval Europe. It underscores the papacy's role in European power politics. The Crusades, a series of religiously motivated military campaigns launched by European Christians in the 11th through 13th centuries, offer another compelling example of papal influence on the world stage. Pope Urban II's impassioned call for the First Crusade at the Council of Clermont in 1095 ignited a movement that would reshape the political, religious, and economic landscape of Europe and the Middle East for centuries to come. Urban, driven by a complex mix of religious zeal, political calculation, and a desire to heal the schism between the Eastern and Western churches, framed the crusade as a holy war to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim control. He promised spiritual rewards, including the remission of sins to those who took up the cross. His words ignited a wave of religious fervor, mobilizing knights, peasants, and merchants alike to embark on a perilous journey east. The Crusades, while ultimately failing to achieve their primary objective of maintaining long-term Christian control of the Holy Land, had far-reaching consequences, including a profound impact on the European economy. The need to finance these vast military expeditions spurred the development of new financial instruments, such as letters of credit, facilitating the movement of funds across long distances. Moreover, the Crusades opened up new trade routes to the east, bringing European merchants into contact with exotic goods, spices, and luxury items. This influx of Eastern goods stimulated European demand, fueling trade and contributing to the growth of Italian city-states like Venice and Genoa, which established themselves as major trading hubs. The Crusades, while a complex and controversial chapter in history, underscore the papacy's ability to mobilize resources, shape economic activity, and exert influence on a global scale. The Crusades, though launched with religious motivations, had unintended economic consequences that reverberated throughout Europe. They highlight the papacy's power to shape the course of history, even when the ultimate outcomes differed from its initial intentions. The Crusades serve as a reminder that papal actions, even those cloaked in religious fervor, could have profound and lasting economic repercussions. The Renaissance and Reformation, two transformative periods in European history, marked a turning point in the papacy's relationship with the world and its evolving economic order. The Renaissance, a period of flourishing artistic, scientific and intellectual creativity, challenged the Church's traditional authority, while the Reformation, sparked by Martin Luther's challenge to papal authority, shattered the religious unity of Europe. The Renaissance, with its emphasis on human reason and individual achievement, led to a questioning of traditional hierarchies, including the Church's dominance in matters of knowledge and power. The rise of humanism, a philosophical movement that celebrated human potential, challenged the Church's focus on the afterlife, shifting attention to the here and now. This shift in focus had economic implications, as individuals and city-states began to prioritize material prosperity and earthly pursuits. The Reformation, with its emphasis on individual conscience and a direct relationship with God, further weakened the papacy's authority. The Protestant Reformation, triggered by Luther's 95 Theses in 1517, challenged the Church's teachings on salvation, rejected papal supremacy, and led to the emergence of new Protestant churches across Europe. This religious upheaval had profound economic consequences as the Church lost control over vast landholdings and sources of revenue. The papacy, facing these challenges, responded with a mix of reform and retrenchment. The Council of Trent, from 1545 to 1563, a key moment in the Catholic Counter-Reformation, addressed some of the abuses that had fueled the Protestant Reformation and reaffirmed core Catholic doctrines. The papacy, however, never fully regained the political and economic dominance it had enjoyed in the Middle Ages. Despite these challenges, the papacy continued to exert influence on the world stage. Popes like Leo X, a patron of the arts and a key figure in the Italian Renaissance, continued to shape the cultural and intellectual landscape of Europe. The papacy, though weakened, remained a significant player in the complex religious, political, and economic dynamics of early modern Europe. The Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century and swept across Europe and North America in the 19th century, presented the papacy with new and unprecedented challenges. The rise of factories, mass production, and urbanization led to both economic growth and social upheaval. The gap between the rich and the poor widened. Working conditions in factories were often deplorable, and new ideologies like socialism and communism challenged the existing social order. Pope Leo XIII, recognizing the profound social and economic transformations underway, issued his groundbreaking encyclical Rerum Novarum on the condition of labor in 1891. This landmark document addressed the pressing social issues of the day, offering a Catholic perspective on the rights and duties of both workers and employers. Rerum Novarum condemned the excesses of both laissez-faire capitalism and revolutionary socialism. It affirmed the right to private property, but also emphasized the social responsibility of property ownership. It upheld the rights of workers to fair wages, reasonable working hours, and safe working conditions. It also encouraged the formation of labor unions as a means for workers to advocate for their rights collectively. This encyclical laid the foundation for modern Catholic social teaching, which emphasizes the dignity of work, the importance of the common good, and the need for a just and equitable economic order. Rerum Novarum had a profound impact on the development of labor movements and social reform efforts around the world. It inspired generations of Catholics and non-Catholics alike to work for social justice and economic equality. Rerum Novarum marked a turning point in the Church's engagement with the modern world. It demonstrated the papacy's willingness to address complex social and economic issues, offering moral guidance and concrete solutions to the challenges of the industrial age. It established the papacy as a significant voice in the growing global conversation about social justice and economic fairness. The 20th and 21st centuries have witnessed a remarkable expansion of the papacy's role on the world stage. Popes have become global travelers, advocating for peace, justice, and human development. Their pronouncements on war, poverty, and climate change shape public opinion and policy. Pope Paul VI was the first pope to visit all 5 continents. He addressed the United Nations in 1965, appealing for peace and cooperation. His 1967 encyclical called for a just international economic order. Pope John Paul II played a pivotal role in the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. His travels inspired the Solidarity movement, contributing to the Berlin Wall's collapse. He spoke against globalization's excesses, prioritizing human dignity. Pope Benedict XVI emphasized faith and reason in economic and political issues. He called for ethical economic decision-making and respect for human dignity. Pope Francis focuses on social justice, environmental stewardship, and the poor. His 2015 encyclical addressed climate change, calling for global environmental justice. These popes have shown the papacy's enduring relevance in a changing world. They address global challenges, advocate for the marginalized, and promote peace and justice. The shadow of war: papal diplomacy in a time of global conflict. The 20th century dawned with the specter of war looming over Europe. Nationalism and militarism were on the rise, old alliances were crumbling, and a complex web of treaties and rivalries threatened to draw the continent into a conflict of unprecedented scale. The papacy, long a player in the intricate game of European power politics, found itself thrust onto the center stage of international diplomacy, its moral authority tested as never before. Pope Benedict XVIII, elected just weeks after the outbreak of World War I in 1914, declared the Church's neutrality and dedicated his papacy to seeking peace. He appealed to the warring nations to lay down their arms, offering mediation and humanitarian aid. He condemned the horrors of war, particularly the use of poison gas and the indiscriminate targeting of civilians, earning him the moniker, the Pope of Peace. Despite his tireless efforts, Benedict XV's pleas for peace largely fell on deaf ears. The warring nations, caught in a spiral of violence and driven by nationalistic fervor, were unwilling to compromise their war aims. Yet, the Pope's unwavering commitment to peace, his tireless humanitarian efforts, and his moral condemnation of the war's excesses left an indelible mark. He laid the groundwork for a more active papal diplomacy in the years to come, one that would see the papacy increasingly engaged in global affairs, seeking to prevent conflict and promote reconciliation. The horrors of World War I, a conflict that claimed millions of lives and shattered the illusion of European stability, profoundly shaped the papacy's view of war and peace. Benedict XV's papacy, though marked by the tragedy of a war he could not stop, established a precedent for papal engagement in international affairs, paving the way for his successors to play a more active role in promoting peace and reconciliation in a world increasingly riven by conflict. The rise of fascism in Europe in the 1920s and 30s presented the papacy with another grave challenge. Benito Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy, with its ideology of nationalism, militarism, and totalitarian control, clashed with the Church's teachings on human dignity, freedom of conscience, and the limits of state power. The papacy, while initially seeking accommodation with Mussolini's regime, ultimately found itself in opposition to the fascist state's totalitarian ambitions. Pope Pius II, a staunch defender of the Church's independence and a vocal critic of totalitarian ideologies, condemned the persecution of Jews in Nazi Germany and the suppression of religious freedom in the Soviet Union. He recognized the inherent dangers of fascism, its exaltation of the state over the individual, and its suppression of dissent. In 1937 he issued his encyclical Mit brennender Sorge, or With Burning Concern, a scathing condemnation of Nazi ideology smuggled into Germany and read from Catholic pulpits across the country. Pius V's papacy was marked by a delicate balancing act. He sought to protect the Church and its faithful from fascist persecution while also seeking to uphold the principles of peace and justice in a world increasingly divided by extremist ideologies. His opposition to fascism, while often muted by political realities, demonstrated the papacy's willingness to take a moral stand against tyranny, even at the risk of retaliation. The papacy's experience with fascism, a brutal ideology that plunged Europe into the abyss of World War II, reinforced its commitment to defending human dignity and opposing totalitarian regimes. Pius VII's papacy, though navigating a treacherous political landscape, demonstrated the power of moral leadership in the face of oppression. His legacy would inspire future popes to raise their voices against injustice and defend the fundamental rights of all people. The aftermath of World War II brought a new global order, one dominated by two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War, a period of intense ideological rivalry and geopolitical tension, created a bipolar world, dividing nations into communist and capitalist blocs. The papacy, navigating this new global landscape, sought to build bridges of dialogue, promote peace, and advocate for human rights behind the Iron Curtain. Pope John XXIII, elected in 1958 at the height of the Cold War, brought a spirit of openness and dialogue to the papacy. He convened the Second Vatican Council, from 1962 to 1965, a landmark event in the Church's history, which sought to modernize the Church, promote ecumenical dialogue, and engage with the modern world. John XXIII's encyclical Pacem in Terris, or Peace on Earth, issued in 1963, addressed the pressing issues of the day, including the nuclear arms race, calling for disarmament, respect for human rights, and a just world order based on law and cooperation. John XXIII's papacy, though brief, marked a significant shift in the Church's approach to international affairs. He recognized the need for dialogue and cooperation in a world increasingly interconnected, yet divided by ideological barriers. His efforts to build bridges between East and West, to promote peace and understanding in a time of tension and mistrust, laid the groundwork for a more active papal diplomacy in the latter half of the 20th century. The Cold War, with its constant threat of nuclear annihilation, underscored the fragility of peace and the urgent need for dialogue and reconciliation. John XXIII's papacy, though navigating the complexities of a bipolar world, demonstrated the power of openness, dialogue, and a commitment to the common good in bridging ideological divides and building a more peaceful world. The latter half of the 20th century witnessed a growing awareness of the vast economic disparities between developed and developing nations. The gap between rich and poor countries continued to widen, as many developing nations struggled with poverty, debt, and underdevelopment. The papacy, increasingly focused on issues of social justice and global solidarity, became a vocal advocate for debt relief, economic development, and a more just international economic order. Pope Paul VI, in his 1967 encyclical Popularum Progressio, or On the Development of Peoples, addressed the pressing issue of global inequality, calling for a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources. He argued that true development encompassed not just economic growth, but also social justice, human dignity, and the fulfillment of basic human needs. He urged developed nations to recognize their responsibility to assist developing countries, providing aid, promoting fair trade, and working to create a more just and equitable global economic system. Paul VI's call for economic justice resonated with many in the developing world, who saw in the papacy a powerful ally in their struggle for a more equitable share of global wealth. His pronouncements on debt relief and development helped to shape the debate on international development, influencing the policies of international organizations and inspiring grassroots movements for economic justice around the world. The papacy's focus on economic justice, particularly its call for debt relief and a more equitable international economic order, demonstrated its commitment to the poor and marginalized, those most affected by global inequality. Paul VI's papacy, with its emphasis on the social dimension of development, laid the groundwork for a more engaged papal diplomacy on issues of economic justice, a legacy that would continue to shape the Church's approach to global poverty and inequality in the 21st century. Section 5. Globalization and its discontents, challenging the neoliberal order. Globalization brought economic growth and technological advancements, but also increased inequalities, job displacement, and environmental degradation. Pope John Paul II criticized unfettered capitalism, advocating for a globalization of solidarity, prioritizing human dignity and social justice. He called for a just global economic system protecting workers' rights and promoting sustainable development. His critique resonated with those left behind by globalization, challenging the neoliberal orthodoxy. John Paul II's focus on social consequences laid the groundwork for future calls for a more equitable global order. The legacy begins, a new era of economic thought. As the world grapples with unprecedented economic challenges, Pope Leo XIV's papacy holds immense promise. His early pronouncements, steeped in the Church's long tradition of social justice and a preferential option for the poor, signal a potential paradigm shift in how we think about economics and its purpose. He challenges the world to move beyond a narrow focus on GDP growth and profit maximization, urging us to embrace a more holistic understanding of prosperity, one that encompasses human dignity, social justice, environmental sustainability, and the common good. His vision, rooted in the belief that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God, and therefore possesses inherent dignity, stands in stark contrast to economic models that prioritize profit over people and treat human beings as mere cogs in a vast economic machine. Pope Leo XIV invites us to reimagine economics as a moral enterprise, one that prioritizes the well-being of all, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized members of our global community. This new era of economic thought, if embraced by world leaders, policymakers, and citizens alike, has the potential to transform not only our economic systems, but also our very understanding of what it means to live a good and fulfilling life. It calls for a shift away from individualism and consumerism towards solidarity, and a shared sense of responsibility for the well-being of our planet and all its inhabitants. Pope Leo XIV's papacy offers a beacon of hope in a world often driven by greed, inequality, and short-term thinking. His challenge to the status quo, his unwavering commitment to the principles of social justice and environmental stewardship, and his vision for a more equitable and sustainable world have the power to inspire a new generation of economists, policymakers, and citizens to work towards a future where economic prosperity goes hand in hand with human flourishing for all. Pope Leo XIV assumes his role at a pivotal moment in human history. The world faces interconnected crises: climate change, global inequality, political polarization, and the erosion of trust in institutions that demand bold leadership and innovative solutions. His papacy, with its global reach and moral authority, offers a unique platform to address these challenges and galvanize a global movement for change. His pronouncements, amplified by the global network of the Catholic Church, its 1.3 billion members, countless parishes, schools, universities, hospitals, and charitable organizations, have the power to reach every corner of the globe, transcending political and cultural boundaries. He can speak directly to the hearts and minds of people from all walks of life, inspiring them to act for a more just and sustainable world. The power of the papal platform lies not in political or economic coercion, but in its moral authority and its ability to inspire hope, solidarity, and a sense of shared responsibility for the common good. Pope Leo XIV's challenge is to leverage this platform effectively, to mobilize the Church's vast resources, and to galvanize a global movement for change that transcends religious and ideological divides. The world is watching, eager to see how Pope Leo XIV will use his influence to shape the global conversation on economic justice, environmental stewardship, and the future of our planet. His papacy offers a unique opportunity to bridge divides, inspire hope, and chart a new course towards a more just, equitable, and sustainable future for all. Pope Leo XIV's papacy is fraught with challenges. He inherits a world grappling with complex, interconnected problems that defy easy solutions. The forces of globalization, technological disruption, and climate change are reshaping our world at an unprecedented pace, creating both opportunities and risks. Navigating this complex landscape requires wisdom, courage, and a deep commitment to dialogue and collaboration. One of the most pressing challenges facing Pope Leo XIV is the growing gap between rich and poor, both within and between nations. The benefits of economic growth have not been shared equitably, leading to rising inequality, social unrest, and political instability. He must continue to challenge the prevailing economic orthodoxy that prioritizes profit over people, advocating for policies that promote economic inclusion, social justice, and a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources. Another formidable challenge is the urgent need to address climate change, a threat that disproportionately impacts the poorest and most vulnerable communities. Pope Leo XIV must continue to raise awareness about the moral imperative of environmental stewardship, urging world leaders to take concrete steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transition to renewable energy sources, and protect our planet for future generations. He must also navigate a world increasingly divided by political polarization, religious extremism, and cultural clashes. The rise of nationalism, populism, and identity politics threatens to undermine global cooperation and sow discord among nations. Pope Leo XIV's challenge is to be a bridge builder, promoting dialogue, fostering understanding, and reminding us of our shared humanity. A legacy of hope towards a more just and sustainable future. Despite the daunting challenges, Pope Leo XIV's papacy is a source of hope for a world yearning for moral leadership and a renewed commitment to the common good. His vision, rooted in the timeless values of compassion, solidarity, and care for creation, offers a compelling alternative to the cynicism, greed, and short-term thinking that often dominate human affairs. His papacy has the potential to be a turning point, a moment when we reassess our priorities, reimagine our economic systems, and recommit ourselves to building a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. His legacy will be measured not just by his words, but by the actions they inspire. In the halls of power, in the boardrooms of corporations, in the laboratories of scientists, and in the hearts of individuals around the world, Pope Leo XIV's papacy is a call to action, an invitation to join a global movement for change. It is a reminder that we are all interconnected, that our choices have consequences, and that we have a shared responsibility to care for one another and for the planet we call home. It is a legacy that will be written not just by one man, but by all who dare to believe in the possibility of a better world and are willing to work together to make that vision a reality.